October 18th, 1941. Kharkov Tractor Plant, Ukrainian SSR. Oberst Friedrich Weber steps through the shattered entrance of what should be the Soviet Union's second-largest tank factory. His boots crunch on broken glass. Smoke still curls from a guardhouse, but something is wrong, profoundly wrong. The Wehrmacht intelligence briefings promised assembly lines churning out T-34 medium tanks, thousands of workers, mountains of strategic machinery. Instead, Weber's flashlight beam cuts through cavernous silence. The production floor stretches before him like a gutted cathedral. Anchor bolts jut from concrete where heavy presses once stood. Oil stains mark the ghosts of lathes and milling machines. Electrical cables dangle, severed clean. His adjutant, Lieutenant Kraus, arrives breathless from the rail yard. Herr Oberst, the sidings are empty, completely empty. Our engineers estimate they moved everything weeks ago. Weber scans the vast emptiness. Kharkov was a jewel in the Reich's strategic crown, meant to cripple Soviet armor production for years. He'd studied the intelligence photographs himself, acre upon acre of industrial might. Now it's a hollow shell. Everything? Weber's voice echoes. The turbine hall, the forge, even the smaller machine tools, gone. Across occupied Soviet territory, German officers are making identical discoveries. In Leningrad's outskirts, in Dnepropetrovsk, in Mariupol, the factories have vanished, not destroyed, vanished. And to the east, beyond German reconnaissance range, something unprecedented is taking shape. July 4th, 1941. Evacuation Council Headquarters, Moscow. Nikolai Voznesensky's fingers trace rail lines on a map that looks more like a surgeon's chart than a transportation network. As chairman of the State Defense Committee's Evacuation Council, he commands an operation without historical precedent. 2 weeks since Hitler's invasion, and the order is absolute: move the entire industrial base east before the Wehrmacht can seize it. Comrade Voznesensky, the Kirov plant in Leningrad. An exhausted planner stammers. 30,000 workers, their families, Chelyabinsk. Voznesensky doesn't look up. Next. The room buzzes with controlled chaos. Telephones ring constantly. Each represents a factory, a deadline, a race against German panzers. His deputy spreads a typed list across the table. 1,523 major enterprises targeted for evacuation. The number seems impossible. At Kharkov Tractor, the same plant Weber will soon find empty, foreman Dmitry Kolesnikov watches a 50-ton turbine press being sledgehammered into transportable pieces. Sparks cascade in the July heat. Workers, men, women, teenagers, attack their own machinery with desperate precision. Every bolt cataloged, every component marked. The rail yard trembles as locomotives strain against loads never designed for freight cars. Families cluster between machine parts, clutching photographs and bread. An elderly machinist strokes a lathe bed like a wounded animal as it's hoisted onto a flat car. 12 hours, a commissar shouts over the grinding steel. Panzers are 12 hours out. The exodus has begun. September 29th, 1941. Trans-Siberian Railway, approaching Chelyabinsk. The train has been moving for 19 days. Ekaterina Maltseva huddles against a stamping press cylinder wrapped in tarpaulin, her 6-year-old son asleep in her lap. She's a toolmaker from the Kirov plant. Was a toolmaker. Now she's cargo, human ballast packed between the industrial guts of Leningrad. The convoy stretches ahead and behind, a mechanical serpent crawling across the Urals. 1.5 million railcar loads will make this journey before winter. Some trains run in reverse because there's no time to turn locomotives around. Others pass still warm from Luftwaffe strafing runs, bullet holes stitching their wooden sides. Through the slats, Ekaterina glimpses Chelyabinsk rising from the steppe, a city utterly unprepared for what's coming. Population, 273,000. In 6 months, it will absorb that many again. The train lurches to a halt beside an empty field crusted with early frost. No buildings, no infrastructure, just Siberian emptiness and a hand-painted sign. Tankograd, Construction Site 7. Foreman Kolesnikov from Kharkov is already here, knee-deep in mud, supervising crews unloading his turbine press by torchlight. The temperature hovers near freezing. Workers dig foundation pits with hand tools because the excavators haven't arrived yet. Some factories will produce their first tank components before they have roofs. An engineer named Pavel Rybalko watches a steam hammer, still warm from the journey, being lowered onto hastily poured concrete. "We start assembly Monday," he announces. It's Thursday. February 12th, 1942. Tankograd Assembly Hall, Chelyabinsk. The first T-34 rolls off a production line that didn't exist 4 months ago. Pavel Rybalko, now chief engineer, runs his hand along armor plate still warm from welding. Outside, the temperature reads -38 Celsius. Inside, the heat from forges makes workers strip to undershirts. They work 20-hour shifts, sleep in barracks where frost coats the inside walls. Ekaterina Maltseva machines gun breech components on the same lathe she operated in Leningrad, now bolted to a floor she helped pour. Her son attends school in a tent. They eat 400 grams of bread daily, when there's bread. The numbers become staggering. Tankograd alone, 18 T-34s daily by spring. The Uralmash factory in Sverdlovsk, artillery barrels, then complete howitzers. In Novosibirsk, aircraft plant. Number 153 produces Il-2 Sturmoviks, flying tanks that will savage German armor factories operate in buildings with canvas roofs and dirt floors, but they operate. By December 1942, Soviet plants beyond the Urals outproduced the entire Reich in tanks, artillery, and combat aircraft. Oberst Weber, now commanding a panzer regiment at Stalingrad, watches 16 T-34s crest a ridge, fresh paint, perfect formation. His intelligence officer spreads a decoded Soviet production report. "Impossible," Weber mutters. "We destroyed their industry." "Herr Oberst," the officer replies quietly, "they moved it. The factories didn't vanish. They transformed. And now, they're winning." July 5th, 1943. Prokhorovka, Kursk salient. 800 Soviet tanks surge forward in the largest armored engagement in history. Every third one was born in Tankograd. The Il-2s screaming overhead, nicknamed Black Death by German infantry, came from those canvas-roofed Siberian plants. The artillery barrage that preceded dawn, Uralmash steel, Ekaterina Maltseva, still at her lathe in Chelyabinsk, doesn't witness Kursk. She's machining components for tank number 8427 this year alone. Her hands bear permanent scars from frostbite and metal shavings. She's lost 12 kilos. She hasn't missed a shift in 18 months. In Moscow, Voznesensky reviews the final tallies. 1,523 enterprises, evacuated 15 million tons of equipment moved. 30 to 40% of the USSR's entire industrial capacity was relocated while fighting history's most brutal invasion. Production losses barely registered 6 months before output exceeded pre-war levels. The Germans never recovered from the strategic miscalculation they'd counted on capturing Soviet industry. Instead, they faced an industrial exodus that turned Siberian wilderness into the world's largest weapons foundry. Weber survives Kursk. In a POW camp years later, he'll tell interrogators about that empty factory in Kharkov, how he'd stood in those hollow halls, thinking he'd witnessed defeat. He'd seen the opposite. He'd witnessed a nation picking up its anvils and carrying them 1,000 miles rather than surrendering them. The factories didn't vanish. They walked east through fire, reassembled themselves in the snow, and built the steel tide that drowned the Wehrmacht.